RMC reincarnated into another world and began streaming. But little did he know what lay ahead for him in this new life, especially the hidden dangers of Yandere fans.
Yeah, boy.
The sun was setting over the royal city as Kanata, a student at Sistel Royal Academy, returned to his dorm after another long day of classes. He tossed his coat aside, tied a bandana around his head, and got ready for what had quickly become his favorite part of the day, streaming. As his magical streaming interface flickered to life, he greeted his growing audience with a casual wave, thanking them for tuning in again. Thousands of listeners poured into the chat, eager for Kanata's advice segment. The first question of the night came from Akuta, a B-rank adventurer. Akuta explained that recently, a new kid had joined his adventuring party. But the problem? The kid could only use support magic and handle repairs. As the leader, Akuta decided to kick him out, seeing no value in the kid's skills. Kanata's reaction was immediate. With a smirk, he asked if Akuta was being serious. Support magic and repair skills were vital, Kanata explained, pointing out that without those, any party would be in danger. The chat exploded, with fans siding with Kanata, bashing Akuta's leadership abilities. Kanata added that if Akuta's party ended up in a life-or-death situation, it would be because of his own poor judgment. The advice came sharp and fast. Akuta should beg the support magic user to return before it was too late. The chat erupted in laughter and agreement, as Kanata's brutally honest commentary continued to win over his fans. His viewership climbed, now sitting comfortably at over 10,000 concurrent listeners. Next up was a question from a nobleman's son. The young fan confessed he was engaged, but had fallen head over heels for a cute transfer student. He wanted to break off his engagement and choose love instead. Kanata, in a fit of playful jealousy, slammed his hand on the desk, telling the fan he should just die and let the girl marry Kanata instead. The absurdity of it sent the entire chat spiraling into laughter. From commoners to royalty, even the demon race seemed to be tuning in for Kanata's witty takes. After all, who wouldn't be entertained by a streamer who spoke so openly and fearlessly? Kanata himself chuckled, half wishing he had a girlfriend too. But with a sigh, he wrapped up his stream, feeling satisfied with the night's chaos. As the stream ended, Kanata leaned back, stretching his arms. Is this what it felt like for streamers back on Earth? He wondered. Either way, he was having the time of his life. The next day, Kanata returned to his usual routine at Sistel Royal Academy. In an outdoor magic class, the teacher explained how magic was derived from one's imagination. Kanata stood among the students, listening half-heartedly. Magic was no longer the thrilling mystery it once was, especially after discovering his own powers, which were limitless. He had ranked as an S-class mage, allowing him to enroll in the academy, a place reserved for nobles and wealthy commoners. Naturally, prejudice followed him. As he stood in the crowd, two noble students approached him with mocking sneers, shooing him away. Kanata just smiled politely, hiding his irritation. But it wasn't enough to calm the one with the ridiculous yee-yee hair, who grabbed Kanata's collar, ready to start something. Before things escalated, a voice broke the tension. A voice everyone immediately recognized. It was Maria Atarashisu, the princess. Apologizing for being late, she gracefully stepped into the class. The teacher welcomed her without a hint of reprimand, even asking if she would demonstrate some magic for the class. Before she could respond, a cheeky noble volunteered, clearly eager to show off in front of the princess. He cast a fireball at the target, landing it dead center, but the teacher's lack of enthusiasm said it all. Then the teacher chose Kanata. Snickers filled the air as the other students watched, waiting for him to fail. Unfazed, Kanata casually gathered magic in his fingertips and cast a small fireball. It looked like nothing special, until it hit the target, causing an enormous explosion that left everyone in stunned silence, jaws hanging open. The teacher, finally impressed, complimented Kanata's immense power. The other students, however, were left deflated, feeling unmotivated after witnessing what true strength looked like. But not everyone was impressed, especially not the noble with the yee-yee spiky hair. Jealousy flared in his eyes. Kanata was just a mere commoner. Filled with rage, he accused Kanata of cheating and began gathering his own magic, preparing to attack. But just as things were about to escalate, a firm voice cut through the air, stopping them cold in their tracks. It was Maria the princess. Her sharp gaze landed on the nobles, and with authority, she reminded them that this had nothing to do with social status. There was a reason Kanata was at this prestigious school, and they'd do well to remember it. Without hesitation, The nobles bowed in apology as Maria approached Kanata. She complimented his magic with a smile, though Kanata couldn't ignore the hostile stares from the other students. Maria, with a teasing smirk, told Kanata not to go picking fights, even though they'd started it first. That night, back in his dorm, Kanata set up his stream once again. He had made some upgrades to his setup, mimicking the sleek look of a PC from Earth. In this world, while there was a network, few had access to technology, and even fewer had entertainment. But thanks to his unlimited power, Kanata had created a unique streaming network, one that no one else could replicate. Normal people would run out of magic within minutes trying to stream like he did. As the stream started, Kanata casually told his audience that something bad had happened today. He explained how nobles and commoners were still butting heads over status. His chat flooded with divided opinions, some siding with the nobles, others sympathizing with the commoners. But then, a colorful message popped up in the chat. The username, Anonymous Princess. The message came with a donation, 10 gold coins. Kanata blinked, slightly surprised. That was roughly 100,000 yen, or about $680. He thanked the princess for her generosity, but quickly noted that she had sent him gold yesterday too. Was she stealing from her parents or something? Kanata, half joking, offered to refund the money if she was in trouble, but the response from Anonymous Princess came swiftly. She claimed the money was hers and pleaded with Kanata to let her be his lover. Kanata, raising an eyebrow, chuckled to himself. He had never shown his face on stream, so he assumed this was just some random dude pretending to be a girl. With a mischievous grin, he played along, thanking the princess and agreeing to the unlikely scenario of them ever meeting in person. Unbeknownst to him, Anonymous Princess was very real, and it was none other than Maria, the princess from earlier that day. In her private chambers, she was blushing furiously, lying in bed with her device in hand. Her heart raced as she replayed Kanata's response over and over. She tugged at her device, rolling around like an excited puppy, unable to contain herself. Maria then noted how Streamer truly was strange as he appeared out of nowhere and captivated everyone with his charisma and charm. He had saved many people with his guidance, kind words, and bold outlook. But then, her expression shifted. Her eyes darkened as her thoughts twisted. There was something about Kanata, his voice, his presence, that had burrowed into her mind, taking hold of her completely. She wanted to devote herself entirely to him, to live for him, to worship him. It wasn't enough to simply give him gold. She wanted more. A strange smile spread across her face as she whispered his name, all drooling. Yep, this girl was dangerous. Insane even. And as Kanata's following grew larger by the day, he remained blissfully unaware of the many other Yandere fans who were equally obsessed. He had no idea what was coming for him, as they would find him eventually. Dude better start running. The next day, Maria, as usual, found herself donating another 10 gold coins, practically drooling as she hit the send button. After school, Kanata made his way back to the dorms, but as he rounded a corner, he overheard a familiar voice. It was the same noble from the other day, this time confessing his feelings to none other than Princess Maria. Curious but cautious, Kanata hid behind the corner, eavesdropping as the scene unfolded. Maria politely declined the boy's offer, revealing she already had someone she loved. Crushed, the noble boy ran off in tears, wishing her happiness. Kanata couldn't help but feel a twinge of admiration for the mysterious guy who had captured her heart, thinking whoever he was must be incredibly lucky. Maria was exactly his type after all, an elegant beauty with giant badonkas. As he turned to leave, intent on avoiding the drama, Maria suddenly called him out. She had noticed his lurking. With a teasing glint in her eye, she remarked on his not-so-subtle eavesdropping. Kanata, caught off guard, quickly apologized, explaining he had only been passing by on his way home. Maria simply laughed, brushing it off as a joke. Not wanting to stick around any longer, Kanata bolted. As he hurried off, Maria stood still for a moment, pondering. His voice, his mannerisms. They felt oddly familiar, but she couldn't quite place why. Later that evening, back in the dorms, Kanata fired up another stream, unaware that Maria had been waiting eagerly for this very moment. As soon as the stream began, she squealed with excitement, doing some sussy moves and rolling around in sheer joy. Her devotion to him had only grown deeper, and her ears soaked up every word he spoke as if it were divine music. At the same time, another colored message popped up in Kanata's chat, this time with a hefty donation attached. Kanata was pleased, but ever the humble streamer, he reminded his viewers to prioritize themselves, though Maria, watching intently, scoffed at this notion. In her mind, she was the one supporting him, and her love would fuel him further. Determined to prove her dedication, she prepared to donate even more. Meanwhile, Kanata shifted the conversation to a query from another viewer. The topic was about the demon race and whether they could coexist peacefully with humans. Kanata expressed his belief that they should, noting that every race, whether human or demon, had its good and bad sides. Discrimination in his eyes was no different than the way some humans treated others, like the ongoing issue of slavery. This struck a chord with Maria, who recalled a disturbing experience from her past. She had stumbled upon a slaver's den during a journey, horrified by the sight of people caged like animals. It had deeply shaken her. She remembered asking her butler, Sebas, why slavery still existed when it should have been abolished long ago. She had wanted to help, to make a change, but Sebas had gently explained that altering the laws was no easy feat, as many nobles and ministries had vested interests in maintaining the status quo. Sebas, noticing Maria's distress, offered a glimmer of hope. While he wasn't sure what could be done to stop the slave market, there was someone who always had good advice. Streamer. With that, he handed Maria a device, suggesting she listen to his latest stream. At first, Maria was skeptical. She knew of Streamer, of course, but still doubted whether some random voice online could provide any meaningful guidance on such a serious matter. Despite her reservations, she gave it a shot. When the question about abolishing the slave market came through Streamer's chat, Kanata hesitated for a moment before launching into an impassioned rant. He expressed disbelief that slavery could still exist in this day and age, exclaiming how every person, regardless of status, deserved the right to live freely. He angrily condemned the very idea of slavery, calling it the lowest of the low. Though he acknowledged his own social standing would make it impossible for him to do anything about it, he turned the challenge back to the anonymous princess in his chat. If she truly were a princess, shouldn't she try to make a difference? Countless lives could be saved if she acted, though he ended with a cheeky comment, doubting whether she really was royalty at all. But for Maria, this was a turning point. Streamer's words lit a fire within her. She turned to Sebas, resolute, and declared they would head to the king, her father. With that decision, Maria spearheaded the movement to eradicate slavery, and under her guidance, countermeasures were put in place to ensure it would never return. From that day on, she believed wholeheartedly in Streamer, the one who had shown her the way. It was also why she had taken on the role of mediator between nobles and commoners at school. Back in the present, Streamer's chat was buzzing, but instead of celebrating his influence, new messages popped up, with viewers competing to declare themselves the most suitable partner for Streamer. Some even argued over who deserved to be with him. Maria, still glued to the screen, saw red. Fury consumed her, and in a fit of rage, she spammed the donate button, calling the other viewers trash. No one else deserved Streamer's affection, not like she did. Kanata, noticing the sudden flood of messages and donations, interrupted the chaos with a firm statement. He made it clear he disliked viewers who stirred up drama in his space. This comment hit Maria like a brick. Her entire demeanor crumbled as she fell into despair, convinced that Streamer now hated her. Tears streamed down her face as her mind spiraled. But then, Kanata's voice returned, adding that he would forgive them all, if they could just get along and stop the petty arguments. Maria's mood flipped in an instant. Relief flooded her, and she eagerly agreed, praying to Streamer's voice as if it were divine. Yeah, this girl was something else. Streamer's next topic casually shifted to the idea of getting along with demon kind. He even wondered aloud what the Demon King might look like, as if it were the most normal thing to say. The entire chat went silent. The mood instantly tense. Apparently, this was a taboo subject, one that most didn't dare to bring up. Oblivious to the weight of his words, Kanata mused on the possibility of a future where humans and demons could live peacefully together, leaving his viewers on edge, wondering just how far his influence might reach. Sometime before Kanata made his controversial statement, deep within the demon world, a beautiful woman stood tall amidst a battlefield, her enemies, a group of human challengers, defeated. With a wave of her hand, she sent the defeated humans back through a warp portal, her heart heavy from the century-long conflict with humankind. This woman was none other than the Demon King, Shruza. As she wandered the grand halls of her castle, her attendants greeted her, showering her with praise for her beauty and strength. But their adoration was interrupted when one of them stepped forward with something unusual in her hand, a device left behind by one of the defeated humans. It was Streamer's listening device. Curious, the Demon King took the device in hand and pondered who this Streamer could be. The attendant eagerly explained that the device allowed users to listen to Streamer, but they had no signal within the castle walls. The Demon King remained indifferent, uninterested in human gadgets. However, she figured it might be useful for gathering information, so she nonchalantly ordered her minions to set up a signal in her room. To her surprise, her attendants were thrilled by this command, as they too were apparently fans of Streamer. In no time, the signal was up and running, and the Demon King now had her own setup, complete with a makeshift PC to tune into Streamer's broadcasts. At first, she wanted to listen simply out of boredom, an idle pastime to fill the quiet hours. But over the next few days, something unexpected happened. What began as a way to kill time soon became a daily habit and a necessity. The Demon King found herself tuning in regularly, increasingly captivated by Streamer's words. She was also particularly impressed by the sheer power of Streamer's mana, which seemed to stretch across the entire world, perhaps even greater than her own. Then, during one stream, something caught her attention. The topic turned to the conflict between humans and demons, and Streamer's words jolted her into full alertness. Kanata spoke of how meaningless the war was, sharing a sentiment that deeply resonated with her. She found herself agreeing with him completely. He mused about the possibility of peace talks between the various leaders, and for a moment, she considered the radical idea of peace. But then, with his typical nonchalance, Streamer shifted the conversation to something completely unrelated: his dinner plans. The Demon King couldn't help but chuckle at the abrupt change in topic. Back in the present, the Demon King, now fully engrossed in the stream, decided to donate a hefty sum of gold coins to Streamer. She declared that she would become his personal wallet. Streamer graciously thanked the donor, but, as always, reminded his viewers to prioritize themselves. This simple comment sent the Demon King into a blush, and yes, she too was another Yandere fan, utterly infatuated with Streamer. As the stream continued, another donation notification popped up, this time from Nameless Princess, who had been chain donating for several minutes. This enraged the Demon King, and in her fury, she smashed the donate button repeatedly, determined to outdo the princess. But then Kanata said something that stopped her in her tracks. He casually wondered what the Demon Lord might look like. A coy smile crept across the Demon King's face as she typed a cryptic response in chat, stating that she too would think positively. Later, the Demon King, still lost in her thoughts about Streamer, decided to take a bath. However, her imagination wandered into some sussy and raunchy territory. As she fantasized about Streamer, she became so overwhelmed that she passed out, a trickle of blood running from her nose. After she regained consciousness, her resolve was clear. She wanted to hold Streamer in her arms and embrace him. She was going to grant Streamer everything he could ever want, the world itself even. Without hesitation, she began preparations to leave for the human world. Nothing would stand in her way. Meanwhile, in the human world, the king sat upon his throne, idly listening to one of Streamer's broadcasts. Suddenly, without warning, a portal opened behind him, and to his horror, the Demon King herself stepped through. Back at the dorms, Kanata woke up from a restful sleep, only to find the entire campus in chaos. Outside, people were yelling for everyone to check the news. The headlines screamed the impossible. Breaking news. Demons sign peace treaty with humankind. In the town center, crowds buzzed with excitement, discussing how Streamer had somehow become the catalyst for the peace agreement. It seemed that with just a few casual words, Kanata had literally changed the world. The next morning, Kanata had a sense of satisfaction as he tinkered with his streaming setup. It looked like he had an upgrade in mind, something that would no doubt enhance the experience for his viewers. With his work done, he decided to spend the day in town, enjoying the sights and indulging in some street food. As he casually wandered from stall to stall, a commotion suddenly broke the peaceful atmosphere. Up ahead, a burly thug was towering over a woman, his face twisted in anger. Apparently, she had spilled something on his shirt, and while she apologized, it was obvious this guy wasn't just angry, he was a swindler looking to take advantage of the situation. Kanata watched with mild annoyance as the scene unfolded, finishing the last bite of his meal. After a deep sigh, he stepped in. Without hesitation, Kanata called out to the thug, his voice carrying just enough authority to grab attention. He berated the man for picking on someone defenseless, but the thug, predictably, scoffed at him, dismissing Kanata's interference. That was when Kanata's demeanor shifted slightly. With a calm but dangerous look, he told the thug to let go of the girl. A soft glow formed around his hand as he infused it with magic, and with a swift move, he twisted the thug's wrist. The thug's cocky attitude vanished instantly. replaced by a pained expression and fear in his eyes. Kanata didn't let go until the man got the message loud and clear. Mumbling excuses, the thug suddenly acted as though he had something urgent to attend to and scurried off, leaving Kanata to shake his head in annoyance. He was irritated that the thug hadn't bothered to apologize, but his mood quickly shifted when the girl turned toward him, pulling back her hood. She was young, with a strikingly pretty face, and her eyes shone with gratitude as she thanked Kanata for stepping in. But something about his voice seemed familiar to her. Kanata immediately wondered if she might be one of his listeners, his mind quickly jumping to fantasies of dating this gorgeous girl. Still, he kept his cool and warned her to head home before she got into another incident like this one. The girl, however, revealed something unexpected. She wasn't as helpless as she seemed. She was capable of using magic but had refrained from doing so, not wanting to cause unnecessary harm to the thug. Kanata was impressed, though he jokingly responded that helping pretty girls like her made him happy too. The girl blushed slightly, modestly commenting that there were others prettier than her, but Kanata had his doubts. In his eyes, she was definitely one of a kind. As they talked, the girl's gaze drifted to Kanata's hand, noticing the bandage wrapped around it. With genuine concern, she asked what had happened. Kanata explained that it was just from some books that had fallen on him while he was cleaning the other day. The girl smiled warmly and told him to be more careful. Kanata, touched by her kindness, felt his eyes water slightly as he gently patted her head, calling her a truly nice person. Kanata blinked, a little embarrassed as he pulled his hand away from the girl's head. He apologized quickly, explaining that the head pat was purely instinctive and that he hadn't meant to be inappropriate. Besides, she might have been younger than him, but to his surprise, the girl laughed it off and revealed they were actually the same age. With a mischievous grin, she leaned closer, tugging the collar of her blouse slightly to show a bit of her chest, teasing that her body was much more mature than he might think. Kanata immediately recoiled, his face flushing red as he stammered, trying to keep his composure. The girl giggled at his reaction before they both awkwardly bid each other farewell and went their separate ways. Later that night, the same girl returned to a large, imposing church. As she entered, her attendant greeted her with a slight bow. The attendant mentioned that there had been a small incident in town earlier involving a scammer trying to con her. It was lucky that they hadn't recognized the girl's true identity. Had they known she was the Saintess, things could have gone much worse. The Saintess, however, dismissed it with a calm demeanor, saying that one should hate the sin, not the sinner. Despite the earlier disturbance, the Saintess smiled softly and mentioned that something good had come from her trip. A kind man had saved her from the thug, but as she spoke, her expression grew more contemplative, her thoughts drifting. The man's voice, it sounded so familiar. With that, she excused herself to a quiet, secluded corner of the church. Now alone, she sat down and pulled out a small, familiar device, the streamer's listening device. With a flick of a switch, her calm demeanor was shattered as she flipped into a frenzied state. The Saintess grabbed a nearby stool and began swinging it around, her face flushed with excitement as the streamer's familiar voice filled the room. Outside the door, her attendant continued singing praises about her saintly, calm personality, completely unaware of the chaos going on inside. Meanwhile, the Saintess was practically screeching, yelling out about how lovely the streamer's voice was. Her obsession took over, and in her excitement, she began to undress. She muttered about how every day she purified her body with holy water, just to be worthy of offering everything to him, her eyes gleaming with a manic light. As she drooled over the streamer's voice, she squealed in delight, imagining that she might even get pregnant just from hearing him speak. Bruh. But her delusions were momentarily interrupted when the streamer, in a casual tone, mentioned that he had something special to share before diving into his advice for the day. The Saintess perked up immediately, her excitement reaching new heights. On her device, the streamer suddenly appeared on camera. He was showing his hands. Thanks to the upgrades Kanata had made earlier, he was now able to video stream. But as the Saintess stared at the footage of his hands, something clicked in her mind. Her gaze locked onto the bandage wrapped around his hand, and her breath caught. Could it be? The Saintess pieced it together in a flash. The bandaged hand, the voice? There was no doubt about it. The man who had helped her earlier in town was the very same person she had been obsessively listening to for so long. Her eyes widened as she screamed internally, "No way!" Kanata had unknowingly doxed himself, and now the Saintess was going to find him. Uh-oh. Make sure to like and subscribe